Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is a pleasure to speak in this debate, a debate the Labour Party have been running away from for far too long. For all their praise of Pat's petition, that was placed on the 1st of November 2011. It took till the 6th of February 2013 for the Shadow Secretary of State to have the courage to even meet them. And when he met them, what did their website say? He promised them an Opposition Day debate as soon as possible, before the budget. Well, the budget has been and gone. The spending review has been and gone. And now, what do we see? A press release from the Shadow Secretary of State claiming he has dragged ministers to the chamber. He and his front bench are the ones who have been dragged to this chamber by Pat's petition, by We Are Spartacus and the other extremist disability groups who do not speak for the overall majority. Let me explain to the front bench why I might have sympathy with their reluctance. Because the term cumulative impact assessment is actually a very narrow tool with which to judge the contribution of the disabled community in this country, to judge their potential, to judge what they can achieve. And I think it potentially borders on the offensive. And I would suggest that they actually look a little more widely. Just last week, the Minister for the Disabled published the final set of documents of the Fulfilling Potential report. And I would urge those who want to see a proper cumulative impact assessment to have a look at the technical annex, a far more challenging set of indicators than a cumulative impact assessment would provide, a far more nuanced, reasoned view of what being disabled means in Great Britain today. And I suggest that their empty rhetoric today, their focus solely on benefits as a measure of the quality of life of disabled people, is actually doing a disservice to the wider disabled community. We often hear the party opposite talk of their desire for welfare reform. When we drill down to what they mean, as we have tried to do today, it is very clear what it means is more money for more people. They don't actually understand what the nature of reform is. Let me quote one of our eminent Paralympians, Johnny Peacock, who won so many medals last year. He said on the 8th of September 2012, I did not think I should be taking DLA from people who should be getting it. There are people who should not be on it and are getting it, and there are people who should be getting it and are receiving nothing. The testing could be more secure, and then they could award the benefits to the right people.
Absolutely right.
I cite that because that is clearly not exactly a pro-government press release, but it's quite a middle-of-the-road assessment that the vast bulk of disabled people have about what is occurring in this country. And if the... I will, of course.
Very grateful to the Honourable Member for giving me. Would he at least acknowledge today that people with disabilities are being disproportionately hit by the cuts this government is making? Yes. Will he?
What I would acknowledge, and I thank the Honourable Lady for her intervention, what I would acknowledge is that we are going through a period of profound change and challenging change, that what we are seeking to do as a government is edge towards a greater recognition of the social model of disability. That means not paying attention to the labels that too many wish to hang around the necks of disabled people. PIP, for example, looks at how individuals are coping with their own particular conditions, their own particular disabilities. It does not say you tick box X for condition Y, therefore this is the benefits you get. I will give way one final time.
Because I'm sorry the Honourable Member doesn't understand what is in the assessment, because what it holds is very narrow yes-no responses which don't allow people to explain the nature of their abilities and disabilities.
I think the Honourable Lady is perhaps misunderstanding what the point of PIP actually is. It's to look at how people cope with their conditions. And they are given ample opportunity to submit evidence. And we make sure in my constituency surgeries that that is what we help them to do. I hope honourable members opposite do just that, rather than store up a treasure trove of ATOS scare stories that make people more scared before they attend an ATOS appointment than before. And let me just remind them, if they were paying more attention, I'm afraid I've given away enough time, so the Secretary of State, you've had your opportunity. If you were paying more attention, or rather the front bench were paying more attention to the fulfilling potential document, they might be a little more chilled at some of what they read. Page 34 makes very clear that young people's aspirations can decline in response to their growing understanding of the world. I'm quite sure, listening to members opposite, that young people's aspirations will be declining because of the negative messages they're getting. But at the age of 26, disabled people are less confident about entering into the world. So I think that we should be celebrating the fact that on a much broader range of measures than merely disability benefits, this government is taking steps that the last government never had the courage to do. Let's take a few examples. Think of a young person who wishes to go to university. Under the Labour Party, they were scared to do so because they couldn't guarantee that their care package would be made portable. In our care bill, we're doing just that. How can you put a price on aspiration? How can you quantify hope? What do I say to the disabled people user-led organisation in my constituency that has just introduced a Safer Journeys card that people can show on the trams to make sure the tram pulls away more slowly so they don't get flung to the ground? How does that get incorporated into this precious cumulative impact assessment? There is so much that can be done for the disabled community that will never appear in any of these impact assessments, but it can be reflected in what we are doing with fulfilling potential. I begin to despair of so much of what I hear from the benches opposite that it makes me truly angry. I pay tribute to the previous government for the work they did to try to improve awareness of disability hate crime, but I react with fury to the reaction of so many members opposite when incidents of disability hate crime increase because of the work this government is doing and the last to create an atmosphere in which people are more confident to report that hate crime. And when we actually get an increase in reporting, what happens? We are told that is evidence of the government's war on the disabled. I find that disgusting. I find it personally abhorrent that people should campaign in a partisan way on the backs of the most vulnerable, in the most vulnerable section of our society, to make a partisan point. That does nothing. The contribution of disabled people to this country goes far wider than just the amount that they receive in benefits. But I recognise you cannot talk of aspiration or fulfilling potential if you don't have a stable system of state support. And that is what we are trying to do, to make sure that the right people get the right amount of money, that it matches their own needs and their abilities and their own aspirations to go into work, to live their lives, to fulfil their own ambitions, not the labels that are hung around their necks by the party opposite.